All righty. Good evening, everyone. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info. Can you hear me okay again on the microphone here? We're going back to the wireless mic again here. Make sure everything sounds okay. We'll jump into here in just a little bit here. Chase Elliott again, unofficially, your winner today at the Roval, and quite a bit to talk about. With the weather that we've had this weekend, certainly in the North Carolina region, and what we saw during both the Xfinity series and even really part of the Cup Series race, although the 100% chance of rain and even lightning storms that seemed to be a big part of what the predictions were today seemed a little wide of the mark. And then we had somebody very familiar in victory lane as Chase Elliott continues his road course dominance here in these last few races. It was asked on Twitter during the closing stages of this if this means that Chase Elliott is already a better road course driver than Jeff Gordon. That's a really tough thing to say. I think at this point, it seems like there's a lot that you can't really compare between the different stage formats and, of course, the Rovals. I mean, you kind of wonder how well Jeff Gordon would have performed on the Rovals compared to the natural road courses at Sears Point and Watkins Glen, where he had 6 in a row from the summer of 1997 until the summer of 2000, when the streak ended, when his car was wrecked by Tony Stewart in the S's, and Steve Park was able to cruise to his first victory in the 2000 Global Crossing at the Glen. Kind of a different situation to kind of talk about with that, but regardless, though, the result is the same. Chase Elliott, unofficially your winner, and Timmy Hill, unofficially your last place finisher of the race. Heartbreaker, I have to say, for Timmy Hill right off the start here. Great run that they had. I mean, in spite of being at the back of the field there, they parlayed some pit strategy. Were actually running some scuffed tires at the end of that stage there, and were able to work themselves up about as high as third at one point there. Ended up getting passed by a couple of cars at the end of stage one there and getting a 5th place finish there. Real kudos over to Motorsports Business Management for all the struggles they've had mechanically this year. I think that really sums up their season perfectly. Unfortunately, both the good and the bad, that Timmy has continued to outperform on both sides of it for that program. And yet having the same mechanical issues again, and the number 66 ended up out of the race and now in a position to all but lock up the Nascar Cup Series championship with now his 5th last place finish of the Cup Series season this year. In that number 66 car. But a great run for him in that first part of it there. It was a great underdog performance for him. Certainly kind of stole the show for one part of that. But great performance there for him, and that was good to see. I just hate that they couldn't get the finish to show for it there after everything else. At the same time, Ryan Preece, his closest Nascar contender, also had a fantastic run during this one, leading a lot of those laps there inside of the final 30 or 40 laps of the final stage. Great to see the 37 car back up there. I know Stenhouse was looking to try to make something happen in the 47. Ended up getting spun out himself there off of turn 1, which was such a tricky corner for both the series this entire weekend. But really turned some heads there and was really able to get a good run. Also good to see the Maxwell House colors be back up front again, getting memories back to Junior Johnson's second team or Bill Davis's first years with the 22 car. Good to see that branding get back up there and have some good runs at NASCAR and in Charlotte in general. But a good effort for Ryan Preece as well. So yeah, again, it's the last place battle again for the 2020 season. It's not sewn up for the Cup Series. Seen questions about that already. If we have any disqualifications there, the last place battle will still go to these last 4 rounds as the battle remains still really tight. Timmy has a continuing lead there in the bottom 5s and bottom 10s for the tiebreaker. But anything else can change here in these last few races. And the JTG team, with the difficult summer that they had, you never know how things are going to go down the stretch. But again, I think both teams are really capitalizing on some good runs that would really turn things around for them. If we also talk about the battles further back in the pack, got to give a call to Eric Jones on the 3rd place finish that he had in the number 20. Great run for him. I think he had a fantastic battle there with Chase Elliott, much like we saw a bit with Chase Briscoe and AJ Allmendinger during the Xfinity race yesterday. Great run for him, given that he was the last place finisher of this race last year after he got disqualified at Richmond, and then had another incident there in the Roval that ultimately took him out of the championship. Now him already out of the championship picture. But getting a great third place finish in this one, I think, was a fantastic rebound, especially since on top of all of this, he had to go to the back of the field before the race even started with some mechanical issues, ended up incurring a tail end penalty there. I think that was the other big story to really talk about between all of these races this weekend was the flexibility with which NASCAR has been enacting their rules, particularly the crash clock. We had a lot of issues with that, certainly in the Xfinity race, and even today, pretty much anybody that spun out, even if they didn't actually hit anything, they're already put on the crash clock, which seemed ridiculous to me. I thought you actually had to hit something or actually suffer some damage to your car for it to cause it. I guess at the Roval, maybe they assumed that there was so much damage out there that any kind of incident was going to be presumed to be an accident. It would have been interesting to see what the drivers' meeting interpretation of that was, because this happened several times, not just people like John Hunter Nemechek or J.J. Yaley, who actually made contact with the wall during the Cup race, but then you had other drivers that just simply spun out, being put on the clock as well. I thought that was a strange precedent and a dangerous one, too. I hope it was clear to the teams, because you don't have to go too far back. Both Joey Logano and Aric Almirola in the past have been in a situation where they didn't realize they were on the clock, went to the garage area for a mechanical issue, and then were classified out of the race. So if people aren't on the same page with that, that could potentially be a serious issue. We saw this also in the Xfinity race with Brett Moffitt getting his first last place finish in the Xfinity series, as well as a Truck and Cup series, 151 combined starts in all. He just spun out, had apparently some kind of issue in the rear end of the car that required them going to the garage area, and then they weren't allowed to come back out. And, I was talking about this with my brother, and I was wondering if maybe it was a situation like we had at Watkins Glen in 2018 on the Xfinity side, where not all the teams had rain tires ready, but they were able to confirm. The Our Motorsports team was able to reach out to me. I'm very appreciative of this, of course, saying that they did actually have 2 sets of rain tires ready, just like everybody else. And, if that hadn't happened, they would have been able to be right in the middle of the craziness that ensued afterwards. But unfortunately, they ended up being in last place there, the first for the team. And again, the first for Moffitt across the top 3 series. Saw Moffitt get the responses there on Twitter. It was kind of interesting to see him respond to the statistic there. And of course, a statistic he's not too happy about. But again, and it was pointed out by another user on there, much like we saw with Jeremy Clements in the Xfinity series, or Matt Crafton in the Truck series, or even further back, we talk about Brad Keselowski, Jimmy Johnson, Casey Kane, Clint Boyer, and others. You have a long streak without having a single last place finish in any series, up to including Kevin Harvick's 1,089 combined starts. That really is another metric of just how impressive some of these drivers are, that they're able to kind of avoid those issues, especially if it's been a driver like Moffitt, who's had a lot of experience in the top 3 series in relatively short amount of time. It's something to kind of point out on that. So that would be a different one to talk about too. But yeah, great battle there for a lot of the situations with the Cup Series race. It would have been interesting to see if we were going to get some rain. It looked like there was going to be some rain towards the end of it. It would have been interesting if we had something similar to Watkins Glen in 2012, where you just have some mysterious fluid that just gets all over the track at the end, and suddenly everybody's slipping and sliding all over the place, and you got one of the most famous finishes ever. I'm not sure if that would have really been enough to change this scenario here, as Chase Elliott seemed to have far and away the best car out there for most of this race. Just had to overcome some issues there. Loose wheel, he was able to recover from about as well as when he ran into the inside wall at Heartburn Turn last year. Now he's got his second straight Roval victory. And the youth movement definitely alive and well at the Roval races between both Chase and Ryan Blaney, winner of the inaugural race further back. Kurt Busch, again, great run for him, the 4th spot. Alex Bowman shoring up his momentum there for the next round, getting an 8th place finish. Tyler Reddick was in the top 10 for a little bit. That was good to see. He ended up 12th at the finish there. He got moved out of the groove there a little bit. We mentioned Ryan Preece. He ultimately got 14th. Very surprised to see Denny Hamlin in 15th. It seemed like, given all the struggles he was having and both the front fenders cut off of the car, he was going to run a lot worse than that. But good run for him regardless. Ty Dillon, heartbreaker for him. I was very pleased seeing him up front, trying to get Germain Racing their first victory after he had such a great run at Talladega. Didn't expect him to really do anything at the road courses here. I know he struggled at places like Sears Point and Watkins Glen in the past, but the Germain team really stepped it up here. They had the right strategy at the beginning there. Unfortunately, weren't able to fully recover from that incident into the tire barriers there. It ends up in the 23rd spot. Christopher Bell, same situation. Same verse as the first there, the 95 team, the Levine family team trying to get a victory, ends up in the 24th spot there. Suarez, Galding, LaJoy, Hauf, Davidson, all of them getting in the top 30. Especially impressed with Davidson. I thought with all the damage, or Davison rather, the damage that he suffered in the incident with Denny Hamlin and then Timmy Hill as well. It looked like he got so much damage on both ends of the car that he wasn't going to be able to do much of anything with that. But he cleared the crash clock surprisingly quick. And in spite of the fact that apparently he had a bit of a tangle there with J.J. Yaley and spinning him on the backstretch chicane, a different situation there for the number 53 team. Still very impressed to see them get a 29th place run and just never given up out there. So shout out to the Rick Ware Racing team as well. You go further back, Matt Kenseth got into the tires there towards the end. Looks like Kenseth, of course, has had a checkered past in all of the road courses, and it seems like that's continued over to the Roval. Yaley, Nemechek, Poole, who broke down towards the end, and Timmy Hill, again, unofficially your last place finisher. And that'll be an interesting one to certainly talk about as well. Would I call Chase Elliott a road course ringer? I'm not sure exactly. I think he's definitely figured out the situation with the stages and the stage racing, much like Martin Truex did in his streak over at Furniture Row Racing. But also the these Rovals in particular. I mean, my goodness, I know we've only had a really limited number of them, but consistently he seems to be right up there. Obviously, before even that, he won his first race at Watkins Glen back in 2018. So a good run with everything on that too. But it would have been really interesting to see if we got a situation with the Cup Series that we saw in the Xfinity Series too. But again, I think all things considered, even a damp track seemed to throw a lot of these guys for a ringer there, but they were still able to compete surprisingly well. And we'll talk about the Xfinity race now, of course, because that was an even more dramatic spectacle, you got to say, with all that. We talked about Brett Moffitt getting the last place finish there, number 02 for Our Motorsports. But the first story has to be the weather and the just utter huge downpours during all that. Now, I know there were a lot of debates among other media members on Twitter in particular about how much of this was a game of skill or how much of it was just a complete disaster and people just sliding all over the place. I got to say, I'm definitely in the category of being very impressed with the skills these drivers were able to exhibit during that. And that for a lot of this race, even during the opening laps, we did have a lot of those wrecks where, Tommy Joe Martins and these other drivers were collected in accidents when the rain really started picking up. But I was very impressed with how many of them were staying on the lead lap well into the start of those storms. You would think that if this was going to completely throw these guys for a loop, that the moment there was just even the slightest bit of moisture on the track, everybody was going to be wrecking. And we did see a little bit of that here and there, but I don't think it was nearly, the epidemic of that one Formula One race that they had to restart 4 times where people are piling into each other, and even more expensive equipment or, different events like that. And really, I mean, the fact that there was, still a clear enough race under very difficult circumstances. You got people's windshields fogging up. You got windshield wipers falling off. You got, you can't even see the track at some points because there's just sheets of rain coming down. I mean, the picture of Alex Lebay's car after they were celebrating, you can see just how much rain is in the frame. It's not even like you can't even barely see him because it's almost like just a complete gully washer going there. So I think that was really impressive. I think that they actually had a fantastic show out there. AJ Allmendinger, of course, writing the latest chapter in both his and Colleague Racing's efforts here in the Xfinity Series, pulling off a win that maybe he was heavily favored for, just like Chase was earlier today. But really, under those circumstances, I think that was just absolutely outstanding for him. And Noah Gragson, too. I know he's aggressive. I know he got in the thing with Riley Herbst, and he had a lot of back and forth and everything going on there. But he showed a lot of heart, coming back from a lot of spins and a lot of incidents. So that car just absolutely beat the heck and was actually catching Allmendinger at the end. I'm just glancing at the picture here on the Racing Reference page, showing just how close it was with Allmendinger kind of skating across the finish line at the end. I was just so impressed with that. And it really speaks again to why you don't really need to have all those Cup guys in the field to make it more competitive. You got a lot of competitors in there, again, we mentioned Tommy Joe Martins and Ryan Vargas and Jeffrey Earnhardt and these other guys that maybe either were in the Cup Series and got worked back down there, or just rising stars trying to make names for themselves. It's great to see what they can actually do. And under circumstances that were even more difficult than the Cup Series race, I think they really do need to be applauded for doing as well as they really did. I was legitimately impressed, and by extension, I was impressed also with the way that the broadcast was able to cover any of the action. I know there were some incidents that they were missing, but I was very surprised at what they were able to actually catch at the same time. It very much helped, I'm sure, to actually have the broadcast crew at the track and maybe kind of help in the camera direction and everything. But I think that there was, I was very impressed that even when the rain was getting harder and lighter and back and forth and everything, they were able to work through it. So as critical as I've been of the broadcast, I think that was a very surprising, strong effort there for the NBC group and everything. But let me look at the Xfinity results here. We'll get into trivia here in a little bit. I'm seeing a couple comments on that too, but we'll definitely talk about that. Did Timmy actually get stage points for that? I know that they showed in the graphic that he wasn't getting any points for the Cup Series finish there, but it was a different scenario. I know he's not eligible for Cup points in general, but there was that. Now, again, on the Xfinity Series side, I mean, again, DJM Racing for Mario Gosselin's team, really great effort for all three of their cars. I think it's probably the best that we've seen all three of those cars run in the exact same race. You had the situation there with Josh Williams. It seemed like he was in the top 10, if not the top 5 for most of the first part of that. Ended up having a very hard crash. You could feel it through the sound of it there when he hit into the heartburn turn there in turn 1. Preston Pardus was working his way into the top 10 after starting towards the back of the field there, getting up to there, but ended up having issues there when he got collected with Justin Haley, and apparently showing that he had ignition problems at the end of it too that ultimately took him out of the race. And then LeBay coming back from a spin into the wall himself after being top 5 for really probably the entire race, if not the vast majority of it, still getting a career best run there in the 4th place finish. A great run for him. Cody Ware, again, what a great couple of weeks Cody and the Rick Ware team have had these things. I mean, you had Cody get his career best Cup finish, even though he had the wreck on the last lap, but still a great finish for him. And really, surviving through what was a very challenging race for anybody out there for that matter. And then coming into this race with all that rain and everything, an Xfinity program that the Ware team hasn't even run the entire year until this moment. They get this Mustang out there and they finish in the 7th spot. Really have to be congratulated for that. I mean, that's no fluke. I mean, these couple of weeks there was really impressive. The same blush too, Jay Buford. I was mentioning on Twitter before that race there, Buford has been one of the most impressive ones this year, and it could just be more symbolic of what SS Greenlight Racing has done this year, because we've seen Gray Galding do so well in that car at the super speedways and other events in between. Even Garrett Smithley as well last week at Talladega got a top 10. But Buford at those road course races getting solid top 20s with very little NASCAR experience, but a lot of road course experience. Getting in the 8th spot there at the end. And again, under those very difficult circumstances. I thought that was very impressive as well. Jeffrey Earnhardt in 11th, Josh Bilicki in 13th. Myatt Snyder was going for the lead there, was up to 2nd at one point, spun out, still got 14th. Joe Graff Jr. in 15th, Jeremy Clements 16th, Ryan Vargas 17th. Timmy Hill, again, mentioning him after his, going for the top 5 there in the stage today. Finishing in the 19th spot in the Xfinity race. Cody Vanderwall was up to 13th at one point for Jimmy Means Racing. I know Vanderwall has been getting a ton of criticism from people online and everything, but the kid has really just been trying to do as best he can in that 52 car. It's a small organization, not a lot of resources. They've tried different things with different drivers, Joey Gase, David Starr, and others. But I would say a career run for Vanderwall in this one here and getting a great 20th place finish that could have been even better than that. But it just shows how much he was able to work through that. And especially for, how many challenges that he faced along the way. It was too bad that Stephen Light ran out of gas at that one point. Light is, much like Jade Buford, been doing great on the road courses this year. I know he's a factor in the last car championship and just about sewing that one up. But that's just been from doing the start and park runs in the 66. No fault in his driving ability at all. When he's allowed to run full races, especially on the road courses, he's almost a shoe-in for a top 25 finish. And if not that, something even a little bit better. And even this, when he had the problems there, still got 24th. So a lot of positives you can look at there too. Brandon Brown was running 9th when he ended up driving into a lake basically there at the end of the race. And he's shown a lot of good humor about that, and a lot of the memes have been generated after that. But I still think, he certainly hoped to have a better finish than 26th. But in spite of that, still a decent run that he had to show there. Unfortunately, on the wrong side of the playoff bubble, but little steps here. On the other side of that ledger, you have Ryan Sieg finishing in the 21st spot and will advance to the round of 8. Can't be happier for him. A great round here in the round of 12 to try to make it to the next round, especially at Las Vegas. Those stage points were absolutely critical coming into this race, which was even more unpredictable than usual. Just the third running of this Xfinity race there, and then you have this monsoon that comes over the track. He's really to be applauded for doing as well as he could and overcoming a wreck of his own there when he backed into the wall there and damaged the number 39. Great effort for him. Kaz Gralla was right up there. Seemed like he was going for some stage points as well. Unfortunately, ended up 31st with suspension issues there. We mentioned some of these other competitors. Justin Haley looked like he was going to be a good kind of follow up his come from nowhere performance at the Indianapolis Grand Prix circuit, where he came up just short of the victory. Unfortunately, he had something closer to the Daytona infield road course where he got last, and this time finished 35th. Kyle Weatherman involved in 3 incidents at the beginning there, ended up in 37th spot. But we mentioned Greg Alding earlier. He was very impressive. I mean, I was very pleased to see how well he was doing, and good to see the 74 actually get some additional sponsorship. Apparently an initiative through the state of North Carolina there on the number 74. So it was good to see him do as well as he did, running inside the top 10 there for a bit. Unfortunately, things didn't go the right way. After that, end up dropping a bit further back into the 28th spot at the finish of the race there. But even teams again that were plowed into the wall. We had a couple of scary incidents earlier. We mentioned Ryan Vargas, Tommy Joe Martins, Austin Hill, and Matt Mills, I believe, was also involved in that one. You had several cars plowing into the wall there, but a lot of them actually continuing to race. Austin Hill was the only one, I believe, from that accident that actually got eliminated, and Kyle Weatherman had pretty much dropped out at that point as well. So a lot of these guys actually kept going. A lot of heart shown again by a lot of these teams. And I'm sure, again, nothing against Weatherman or Hill. I'm sure if it was possible, they would have been able to keep going too, but the damage was just too severe for the both of them as well. So you had that kind of situation. But overall, I mean, I gotta say, it was a really, oh goodness, I'm sorry, I missed a super chat here. Goes to Saltwater 1989. I'm pretty sure he won't get driver stage. If the owner points include stage points, then MBM would have gotten some. Too bad for them. Gaunt brothers led the open group by a huge margin. Yep, that's a very good point. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about the owner points. So very good point there. Goes to Saltwater. And again, thank you so much again for the super chat for sure. Very good point on that as well. So, again, we'll see where that shakes out. I think it's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of positives that, a lot of these teams, even the ones that struggled this weekend, can really take from it. Timmy Hill's run in the Cup race today, I think, was fantastic, on top of the runs that he had in the Xfinity race yesterday, as well as Stephen Light's effort. And, it's a shame we never got to see what Austin Hill could do in the 61 before he was in the wreck, but there's a lot of different situations there. Apparently Boyer had to go to the care center after the power steering free beating he took. Oh, goodness. Well, I didn't hear about that, so certainly hope that he's doing okay over there. I know he was giving everything he could to try to get the best run that he could there. Kind of reminded me of the run in the Lightning McQueen car he had at Sears Point a couple years ago. But certainly, thoughts with him as well. I'm sure that's, the exhaustion is something you can't certainly overlook in this situation. But that'll be something to certainly talk about as well. But yeah, really. But again, going into the action in general from the Saturday race, though, I was very pleased and very excited and very entertained, quite honestly, with the racing in the rain. I'm glad that they stuck it out as best they could. I'm sure NASCAR was trying to find a middle ground there, so they did have a red flag for a bit when it was getting completely out of control, and I can respect that. You certainly don't want a situation. You see some of this in some European races where one guy plows into a barrier, then 2 or 3 more, and if it's getting to that point, you just have something that's completely out of control, and you got to just hit the reset button, and you don't want to do anything that's going to be too dangerous for the drivers out there. But I think the competitors, whether they were old or young or experienced or inexperienced, they really stepped up to task and they put on what I thought was a very impressive show. That was very well shot. I got to say, I wasn't joking when I was saying a lot of those shots that NBC had, especially coming out of the chicane where the Musco lights were showing the sides of the cars, and they had these shadows and the raindrops coming down. It's just amazing. It's like Washington crossing the Potomac or something. You had like something that would make a beautiful mural. Like, I mean, you talk about, they have Jimmy Johnson's got a mural there at Charlotte now. They got to do something like that going forward for the Roval. I think that's going to pass into a legend there as some amazing shots there. I know that Daylon Barr and other photographers out there got some very impressive shots, and I certainly hope that they're doing very well with that as well in the days and weeks ahead. Coming up with that. So great effort with that. And yeah, I mean, I got to say, I'm glad that the last place battle was settled as early as I could, as it was, because then I was just able to just enjoy that race almost as a fan, really, and just remarking on how well these guys were going. Again, we mentioned Cody Ware. He was about 19th for most of that race. Then he started getting to 15th and 13th and getting into the top 10. That was an all-day effort there to get that 17 car up there, and it was certainly good to see, and good to see Cody back up there at all. But you know, he must have learned something from running overseas or something in those endurance races over there, because there's definitely from these last two races, there's a big change in what we saw out of him before. Up to and including the heat exhaustion he suffered at Sears Point last year, and now just these two races. I think we're starting to get more of a pattern here. Hopefully he gets some more opportunities in running more races there, or just whatever they can do. I'm sure the Rick Ware team is still kind of figuring out where things are going to settle next year as they, I'm sure, finish off the merger there with Premium Motorsports and how many cars are going to run next year and who's going to run them. A lot of questions that are up in the air that don't have anything to do with a lot of the other silly season stuff to talk about. And we'll talk about that as well, because I know we didn't really do a midweek show this week, so we can certainly touch on all of that as well. Oh, goodness. Thank you again for the other super chat here. Confirmation 07. Goodness. I've noticed a few folks, likely Chase Elliott fans, having conversations about whether Chase is the best road course driver in Cup history. Just pee on Tim Richmond's grave while you're at it, too. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's not, it's tricky. Tim Richmond, absolutely another one. First of all, I completely agree. First of all, again, thank you for the super chat, but also thank you for mentioning Tim Richmond, another outstanding road course driver. I mean, in a lot of his career, and obviously the way that his life ended tragically is it kind of obscures a lot of the raw talent that he had. Tim Richmond was outstanding at some of the most difficult tracks and some of the most difficult circumstances. I mean, the dude won at Darlington. He's won at Daytona. He won at the road courses. He just easily whistled around Watkins Glen when they returned there for the first time in decades, and Riverside for that matter. Right up to the end of his career. Yeah, absolutely another one you'd put in. This weekend is significant and I think this is a big weekend to talk about greatness in general. Because we have now in Formula One, of course, this isn't Formula One chat, but I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate Lewis Hamilton on tying Michael Schumacher's 91 career victories. There's a lot of opinions, of course, about who the greatest Formula One driver is out there. I'm still a huge Senna fan, as much as, even though I didn't really start learning more about him until after he passed away. So in my mind, he's still kind of, the top of the top. And if you're going to have Jim Clark right up there, too, at the same time, just after learning more about the history. But certainly you can't ignore the number of wins that he has, regardless of whatever situation is there. But would I say that he's the greatest ever? That's a difficult question, because then you're going into intangibles, and that's something that's far outside my experience there. So that would be another one to kind of look at. But we can certainly talk about that in the Cup Series here. Road course racing, has been so specialized in NASCAR for so many years that the drivers that have been that good at them, really kind of stood out from the pack. As I talked about in my J.D. McDuffie book, a lot of the times at Riverside, when that was the only road course on the circuit for many years, sometimes running one or two races a year, a lot of the USAC guys were showing up, the Cup Series guys. Richard Petty didn't win there for years, but you got Dan Gurney winning it almost every year. You got guys like AJ Foyt being consistent up there. Other competitors, really showing that. Mark Donohue winning, being the last real, road ringer in the modern sense to take a victory in that sense as well, at least in the Cup Series. So there's a lot of debate that you can look at on the Cup Series side. But when you start talking about those drivers, you're really talking about drivers that were just excellent in just whatever they hopped into, just natural talents. Foyt, Gurney, and all those guys are certainly in that category. If you're talking about within the Cup Series, you got a whole other subset of that, because now you got to deal with, your Jeff Gordon, Terry Labonte. I would even put in that conversation, at least being consistent. Ricky Rudd and Rusty Wallace have to be in there, because they were able to just trade off victories for so many years. Even at the end of their careers, we're still getting top fives at road courses. Just fantastic drivers that just had two very different styles of driving. Mark Martin has to be in that conversation. That at this point, you start the cycle starts to kind of go further along, and you start thinking about part-timers or guys that just had great runs but maybe didn't have wins. Wally Dallenbach falls in that category. Boris Said and Ron Fellows belong in that category. Other drivers like that just able to just kind of pull off great runs as best as they can. I was always impressed with Brian Simo at sometimes there too. I don't think he's really fits into the same pantheon as a Jeff Gordon or anything like that, but he was able to do a lot with a lot of underfunded cars, maybe one of the best underfunded guys to run road courses. So this would be another one to certainly talk about. Yeah, Mark Martin, Tony Stewart, Robbie Gordon. Yep, seeing it in the comments. Absolutely. Lake Speed. There's a really good one to bring up. RD Fox 76. Exactly. You want to talk about road course racing in general. Certainly his go-kart experience, from the beginning and racing against Senna. I mean, a perfect transition from that. That would be another one to talk about. You want to talk about Ray Elder. You want to talk about, some of these Winston West guys. You want to talk about Herschel McGriff. You want to talk about, some of these other guys out there that ran street courses even at some point in the West Series. It's a whole other league. And that's what's really cool about it is when you really think about a lot of these names, you get a larger and larger appreciation of who was able to be that talented at the road courses and what they were able to do with it. Even if they were driving for smaller teams, maybe just competing for decent runs, or if there were ones going for the wins against your Gordons, your Martins, your Wallaces, and your your Ricky Rudds. Very different situation. But all those ones to certainly talk about too. Robbie Gordon, one of the most misunderstood talents in NASCAR too. I know he ruffled a lot of feathers, but a lot of the great ones do too. So that's definitely one to certainly talk about there. Let's see. Yes, before I lose my train of thought here too, definitely want to touch bases on a couple of the big silly season stories from this week. So first of all, Daniel Suarez getting the ride with the Justin Marks effort. Real excited to see what they're going to do. I know that much like the Michael Jordan team, it's almost a lateral transfer from like a startup team with, different resources. And I'll be interested to see where they get their chassis from or how much is going to be in-house versus what they're going to get off-site. More power to Suarez, more power to him to see what he can do out there. I know he's been dealing a lot with the Gaunt brothers there and trying to get the best runs he can. He's improved somewhat after the beginning of the year when they had a real tough stretch to start the year. And it's good to see that Justin Marks was able to get some attention to him there. I know that Suarez, much like we've seen with some of the other competitors this year, seems to have some sponsors that are pretty faithful to him. And now, much like we saw with Bubba Wallace and some of these other competitors, I'm be interested to see what happens to the 96 car next year, though, and how many of those sponsors are still going to be staying on there, especially when Suarez himself has been running some races with just Toyota as the sponsorship, which really isn't a sponsor at all, much like the Hendrick Cars sponsorship we saw on William Byron here. As nice of a paint scheme as that is on the 24, that does belie a bit of a sponsorship issue there, too. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the number 96 and what they can certainly do on that. And then Alex Bowman running the 48. Well, that's a little bit of a weird one. I almost thought that I was kind of in the same feeling that maybe Hendrick was going to go back to some of their old car numbers that they hadn't used in a while. And if they were going to scale back on it, maybe get rid of the 48 and the 88 that are a bit newer in their lineup and go back to the 5 and the 25 and just kind of go back old school a little bit. I think I would rather have that. Having the 88 out there without Junior in it already felt kind of weird, especially since that team was basically custom made for him and it replaced the 25. I miss seeing the 25 out there. I think that, especially if they brought back that old style that Jerry Nadeau ran. Of course, I'm biased in that sense, but I always liked the style they ran because, other teams ran it too. I mean, Ken Schrader ran it and Wally Dallenbach and Brian Vickers in 2006. I always liked the way that looked. So I'd love to see that number back out there. You know, and then bring back the 5, which is the quintessential Hendrick number. I mean, that's the one that the team started with way back when. Not seeing that out there just feels unusual. So I'd really like to be able to see those back out there. And then, yeah, you could put whoever in what car. And at this point, you know, that would be interesting. I feel kind of bad for anybody that's a big Alex Bowman fan. And, you know, if you've had tattoos on your arm with your car number, you've had to keep changing it constantly. And much like your Matt DiBenedetto fans out there. So, but, you know, we'll see. I mean, you know, I think with car numbers, it's a little bit more ingrained in stock car racing than it is in IndyCar or other open wheel sports where people seem to change numbers and like, who cares? Because the paint schemes are kind of a different deal there. But in NASCAR, I mean, there's such a big part of the brand. I don't like seeing it change too much just for change's sake. I mean, why not just leave Bowman in the 88 and then put somebody else in the 48 and whoever that's going to be? I'm seeing comments already talking about that too. Yeah, Joe Nemechek in the 25. Yeah, there's another one too. Oh yeah, and that's the other one. That's the other thing we're going to talk about. We're going to have to talk about Clint Bowyer retiring. I know Kamikaze Games was quite happy about that. I watched his video last night. It's a hoot though. If you guys get a chance to check it out, he's definitely got some outspoken thoughts still about Spingate. But you know, I'll admit, I used to be in the Clint Bowyer fan club in 2006 because when Ricky Rudd seemed like he was retiring in 05, I was kind of looking for somebody new to kind of pull for. At first, I went for Bowyer because I was tired of hearing about Martin Truex all the time going for the championship. And, you know, the Dale Earnhardt, you know, the DEI Chance 2 effort or whatever he had seemed to just be so heavily favored. But Bowyer was going for the championship and really putting him to task, I think, in 05 and being really interesting. So I kind of pulled for Bowyer for a bit. And then I kind of went into like McMurray and some of the other drivers. And then from there, things kind of, you know, separated out. And I kind of transitioned more into what I do now, where I just kind of look at more of the small teams. But Bowyer was part of that. I still have my fan club shirt around somewhere. I might have to bring that out. I'm trying to remember where I put it, but I know I have it around somewhere. But I have that from back in 2006. Yeah, in the rookie season when he was just starting out there in the Jack Daniels car. I thought that was just really cool. But yeah, but you know, obviously, you know, since then, I've seen not only, you know, how well he's been able to, you know, compete out there. It may not be, you know, a weekly contender to win every race, but he's had quite the interesting career and coming up from the dirt tracks and everything in kind of more traditional sense, kind of like a Greg Biffle kind of competitor, doing it a little bit later in the years. And I think he's going to be really entertaining in the booth. Now, 3 people in the booth with him, Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon. There might be a clash of personalities. I'm sure they're going to do something to play up the whole Phoenix fight there in 2012 if they haven't already. But I think Bowyer was quite entertaining. I think Bowyer and Harvick would play off each other better. Harvick being more the straight man against Bowyer, but that would be something else there. Goes to Saltwater 1989. Thanks again for the super chat again. In F1, car numbers are tied to drivers, not teams. I guess they did change that. That's why Lewis is running his old go-kart number, right? The 44. But I was thinking more IndyCar because they don't, isn't it an IndyCar? Correct me if I'm wrong. In IndyCar, when you win the championship, does that person already get number 1 or do they choose it? Or I remember something about Scott Dixon declining that. But I mean, again, I'm no open wheel expert. You go to that other, I mean, you know who the open wheel expert is on YouTube. You can find his stuff quite easily. But yeah, that would be a different deal. But yeah, but I think Clint Bowyer is going to be a hoot in the booth. I think he's real entertaining. Maybe again, kind of in a Brad Daugherty sense, kind of somebody that's a bit more loosened up and kind of entertaining, but not too distracting. I think he's, you know, decent at actually calling the action. And when they did the drivers only thing, and Harvick's not bad either, you know, but I don't think you're going to dynamite Harvick out of that number 4 seat for quite a bit of time here. And also really, I mean, you know, but then again, you know, what's that leave open? Seems like it's going to be Chase Briscoe in the 14. I don't know for sure. I mean, it seems like it would be surprising if that weren't the case. I know Stewart's been outspoken about getting Kyle Larson back in there. And if that's going to happen, who knows? You know, I mean, anything could happen in that sense. You know, Briscoe has had an outstanding season, but I think it would be good, you know, probably if he stayed in the Xfinity series for a bit longer, even if it involves him winning 15 races for another year. If he does that, then, well, okay, yeah, he's too big of a fish and too small of a pond, and we got to get him up to the Cup Series. That's what the Xfinity Series should be. But we'll see. I think he's more ready than Austin Cindric, quite honestly, even though Cindric has really turned around his oval track program from just being on the road courses. But then again, of course, the tie-in with Penske and everything, there was bound to, if there was any kind of opening, they were sure they were going to find a spot for him. And it now sounds like that's going to be the deal with Matt DiBenedetto getting one more year. And then we see what happens in 2022 with apparently Cindric being in the car. That'll be a whole other deal. But yeah, that would be something kind of to see with that. But there's still a lot that's up in the air. I think Eric Jones, again, it was mentioned during the broadcast today, as a free agent is going to be something interesting to see. I still think that, if I were, I'm kind of surprised that the team that hired the Justin Marks effort there, the one there that hired him, didn't hire Eric Jones. I thought that would have been, I think, with all due respect to Suarez, I think Jones being a winner, not just a race winner, but also a winner of the Southern 500, that outweighs a little bit an Xfinity championship, which is, it's impressive in its own right. But if I want to start a cup team, I want somebody with some really good experience that could, get some stuff together there and kind of build on it. I don't know if he was ever offered it or not. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. But I'm a little surprised they did, that it worked out that way. But again, kudos to Suarez and finding a ride and maybe trying something different. I mean, he's in a position now where after the 96 is done, whatever it's done, he can just try something completely new. And, if it helps him and it improves, great. And if it doesn't, well, you can't say he didn't try. So that'll be kind of the situation on that. I wonder if Jones would go to Xfinity. That would be a waste. I think that would be a real waste. I don't think it's a Justin Allgaier, Michael Annett situation where the kid just can't get it done in Cup. You win the Southern 500. I don't care what aero package it is. You deserve to be in Cup. And I include Regan Smith in that, who also went to the Xfinity Series. And it didn't feel right when he did it. I think that's a whole different situation there. At least that's my standpoint. And certainly seeing it live, I think, helped in that sense too, because it was very impressive how he went toe-to-toe with Kyle Busch. And you saw a glimpse of that today, too, in the battle he had with Chase Elliott and just doing the very best that he can. The kid just has bad luck. I mean, again, I've certainly seen my share of drivers be like that. You look at Jerry Nadeau's career, or you look at Greg Biffle in like 2005, 2006, times like that. Some drivers just have bad stints, but it doesn't mean that they're not that good of a competitor. So I think Jones is one of the top free agents, if not the top free agent out there. And I'd be very surprised if he doesn't land on both feet in the Cup Series with something. But that'll be something. Caleb Watkins, what's the word on Poole? Not sure. I think he was surprisingly nebulous about everything that was going on with the 15 team when he was out of the car at Bristol and then came back again. I don't know what the deal was there. NASCAR fan 93-100. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 2005 was Biffle's. I must have been thinking of 06. There was a stretch where he had like a lot of just like near misses in 06, and he finally won at Darlington. But you're right. 05 was when he was really good. Jones to the 43. That'll be fine. I think Ty Dillon's probably in the mix there too. But if you're going to pick between Ty Dillon and Eric Jones, I think Jones is still the better choice in that situation. Yeah, 2006 was rough for Carl Edwards too, wasn't it? I think it was just rough for Roush in general because he had a kind of a weird situation there. Andrew, I saw your comment there about which number they're going to bring back for Cindric and next year, trying a development deal. That would be interesting. If they bring back the 02 or the 39 or one of those, I don't know. I'm tempted to think the 02 or the 06 just because that's had I guess 06 is more. Well, I guess Penske did that with Quapple in 04. That was a little different. I was thinking more of the Roush entry that Cleaver and Reagan and those other guys were, Danny O'Quinn and stuff were trying to run or something. But you had a different kind of deal with that. Let's see. Yeah, no, great run with a lot of these different teams. Yeah, 02 was Penske's actual number. Oh goodness, was that the that old yeah? Oh man, where was that from? There was something. Was it something that Roger actually drove, or was it the first car he owned? I can never remember that. There was something about like an old picture or something like that. Let's see. This is the last for the Jay Robinson car. They're not going to run the 15 anymore. Is that okay? That's I don't know. I don't know anything about that. That's nothing I know on that end. We'll certainly cover that if that comes up here in the entry list storylines. We cover that this weekend for was it Kansas to start the round of 8. We'll see what happens on that end. We'll see here. We'll jump into trivia here in a little bit. I think we've covered that pretty good. If you guys have any other questions there, certainly too, for everything that happened this weekend, anything I've missed or the silly season stuff here, I'll certainly talk about that as well. Had to bring out the AJ Allmendinger shirt here at the same time for Allmendinger's win the other day. This is the one from his victory in 2014. One thing that I particularly enjoy about this one, and it kind of pull it out here. This is actually not the paint scheme that he won with at Watkins Glen. They actually put the car he finished last with at Daytona a couple months before that. So once they had that, I was like, oh yeah, that one's got to be in the collection for sure. So again, kudos to Allmendinger. I mean, I remember how frustrated he was in that last Cup season with JTG. Things just weren't going right, which is too bad, especially how good he is at the road courses. I think he's found a great deal with Colleague that he could just do some of these fun races here and there and not have to worry about championships or anything like that. Just go for W's, and more power to him on that. Goes to Saltwater in 1989. I saw you bring up the starting grids there earlier. Again, I want to apologize for if those of you were expecting a starting grid or anything this week on the channel. Those used to be a weekly occurrence back in like 2008 to 2011. But again, the one that I did for Talladega was just going to be just for Talladega. I tried to make that clear when the video was posted there. I haven't received too many comments on that, but just to kind of head that off while I'm online here. I do have that still kind of as a stretch goal. Whenever we reach certain stretch goals in the Patreon, I'll certainly look ahead towards doing other one-off grids and then having, again, the Patreon members vote on which one. But as of right now, the next one I'm planning on doing will be for the Daytona 500 next year. And given a lot of this silly season stuff, that'll be interesting. So that's gonna be one I just do that one just for fun anyway. So that's why I don't really include that really in the stretch goals on the Patreon there. Big thanks to everybody their support on that as well. I've been really working this week in particular on the script to episode 2 of Rise of the Field Fillers. Big thing that I've been doing that's been kind of a challenge is just reorganizing some of this information that I had. I was digging up the book that I was already kind of outlining that was going to be on this subject, and I could see why the book kind of stalled out, because I have basically like a first third of it, and then like the second 2/3 of it, the rest of it there just kind of tapers off. There's not a lot of information in there, and I think I was just kind of at a point there where it's like, well, this probably isn't the right strategy. So I'm basically just kind of scrapping it for parts and breaking it down into these videos, and I think it's going to make it a much better series here. This next episode, I think, is going to be a bit longer than the first one. I don't know how much longer. I'm still kind of working that out. I got a template kind of figured out, so that'll hopefully keep them more or less the same in one way or another. But I think it's going to be really good once it finally gets done. I want to get it done by the end of the month if I can. If not around the end of the season, I think would be a great time to get that up. And then I'm going to kind of stagger these from there and kind of figure out what things look like over the off season, and that'll be a good one to do forward. So that's something I'm very excited about, and I think after this next episode, you'll get a better idea of what the series is going to do in terms of what the approach is going to be and how we're going to look at the 2004 season and a lot of these drivers and teams that competed back then but didn't get a whole lot of press. So I just dug up some old stuff online here today, and I'm ready to put that in the template. That's something to kind of work on tonight into the next couple of days here, and that'll be something to kind of talk about here at the same time. So look forward to that again on this channel here. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm just seeing this. What was Leach? MLG Pro Swag. I see your comment. I don't know anything about the Jim Utter thing. I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know anything about that. Mark Allen, wow, thank you so much for the super chat here. They said something interesting in the booth today about so many road courses next year, and a lot of other drivers might get chances for rides. Very good point. I think, are we going to see a return of the road course ringers? That's going to be really interesting. Or are we going to see other rides get out there? that's going to be remains to be seen. What we've seen so far, again, and I don't mean to hammer this too much, the Michael Jordan team and the Justin Marks team. I keep forgetting the name. I keep want to say Stackhouse. It's Stackhouse, Hot House? I'm going to have to figure it out at some point. But those two teams out there, they're basically replacing two other teams that we did have this year that we're not going to have next year, which are the Levine family team and the Germain Racing team. What I'm going to be interested in is if we have a whole lot of open teams that are trying to bid for charter spots, that's what I'm going to be interested in seeing. If we don't see that, if we don't see 40-car fields regularly with other drivers trying to qualify, if we don't see qualifying even, there's even questions about that already. That's going to be a huge factor. Look how critical that was to something like Morgan Shepherd's team, where we haven't seen them since the return from the pandemic back in May. That's going to be a really difficult situation. So Trackhouse, thank you. Trackhouse. I was going to say Roadhouse. Trackhouse team there. So that'll be interesting to see in that situation. But, you know, I think the road course racing there next year, it's going to be interesting. I think to answer your question, I think, you know, maybe we'll see some other road course specialists maybe enter open cars, maybe as extra cars that other bigger teams have. I don't know how common that's going to be because I don't know how profitable that is or how likely, you know, they'll be able to bump their way in because they're at the end of the day, they're only going to be fighting for 4 spots with the charter system being what it is. See how that kind of strangles that whole pipeline there. But what's going to be unusual is also Sears Point's not going to be the first road course of the year. I'm so used to that in the past. COTA is going to be with the current schedule. They're going to have to go to Circuit of the Americas a couple weeks before. So that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. As to the number of teams, I don't know if we're going to get that many more. But if we do, it's going to be because other teams closed. We'll see what happens with, I guess, Spire Motorsports has these extra charters and one of theirs went to one place and then all that. You know, it's just going to be just a one, you know, again, a one-to-one transfer with a lot of this stuff, unless the charter system is either abolished or loosened up to a certain degree, or we get larger field sizes. I don't see any of that happening. I'm not hearing anything about that. If NASCAR is not willing to change the yellow line rule, then I certainly don't know how much influence they have over the RTA to kind of loosen that up. So that's going to be a tricky one. 37 charter teams and 7 part-time teams. I mean, you know, that'll be something to have one team that's you know, going to have to compete against the open guys in qualifying. But again, whether or not we're going to have qualifying is still going to be the critical issue. I know there was a lot of talk about one-day shows and stuff like that, and I think that's probably a reason that the Xfinity and the truck schedule haven't been posted yet. That's what I'm going to be interested in. How many of these races are going to be companion events? How many are going to be standalones? How many are going to be one-day events? We're not going to get a real good feel for that until we get the rest of those schedules there, kind of start plugging it all into the calendar. I would love it if you know, if they're going to turn, you know, if the Cup Series ends up being a one-day show, well, they better get some support series out there to make it a whole weekend event still. You know, get the Xfinity Series out there, get the Truck Series out there on top of the West Series, and just have a whole lot of races up there. If you at least do that, that'd be something to work out with. But I don't know if we're going to hear much more about that next year, but you know, yeah, MLG Pro Swag, you bring up the qualifying only happening on new layouts, the Crown Jewel races. So you have that, but I mean, you know, I'm thinking there's probably going to be a little bit of flexibility there. What constitutes a new layout? Is that going to be something where it's a track where they didn't run at this year, but they ran it 2 years ago, like Sears Point, like Watkins Glen, like, well, not Chicagoland or Kentucky, but you know, they would have been in there. That's going to be kind of interesting to kind of see at that standpoint. So, yeah. But I don't know. I will find out. I'd love to see the more the merrier. That's a big reason I'm doing the field fillers thing. Is I'm a big fan of just choking the field with as many cars as possible and big entry lists. That's why I like doing the entry list segment. I think it's fascinating to see new teams come into the sport, new drivers come into the sport, who stays in, who moves here, who does that. One of the most exciting things of the year was always, you know, years ago, used to be the old introduction of all the new paint schemes and all the new, you know, the new cars and new uniforms and everything. And it'd be great to kind of get back to that and have a little less certainty as to who's actually going to be competing out there. I think that makes things really interesting. But that'll certainly be, you know, something to kind of talk about coming up there too. Jonathan Green, yeah, thanks for mentioning Preston Pardis again. Yes, again, congratulations to him on the Spec Miata win over in Road America. A fantastic run for him on that. Preston seems like he's a really good kid and certainly hope, well, maybe he'd be one that would get into the cycle there of these Cup races next year. One could certainly hope. But I'm glad that Sears Point's still in the conversation. It's still got a summer date. Hopefully things are radically different from now then, so that we can actually get a full crowd there and people there to see it, because it's still a venue that I recommend to everybody, and certainly to all of you if you're ever in the area, because that'll certainly be one that I'm absolutely planning on covering next year. Again, our next 2021 coverage, we're looking to start that at Fontana in the spring for the last race on the 2-mile oval. We don't have any other races planned for the end of this year, unfortunately, with things being what they are. We were looking at Phoenix, but that fell through. But we're going to look ahead towards next year and just a complete reboot of this season. And we'll find out what happens from there. So we'll get some more trackside coverage and maybe some trackside live streams there if we get that worked out as well. We're getting the equipment set up together on all of that. All righty. So let's go ahead and go into some trivia here to kind of wrap up. Oh, wow, we're already up to about an hour here. We'll get some more here. Said Ed too. Yeah, glad you like the lapel mag. Hope the sound quality is a little better than what we had on the camera here. I actually invested in it doesn't show up on the camera here. I invested in a new microphone for my videos as well. The microphone I had from about 2009 or 2010 just was giving up the ghost, so I finally upgraded that. So that'll be used in my future videos. I actually recorded a script for NASCAR Man just the other day, so I have another video with him that's coming up. I'll leave it to him to kind of promote the subject matter of that, but it's going to be very interesting from the script was there. So hopefully the audio quality will continue to improve on that as well. And long term, I'd like to get a studio set up here and something a little more professional for you guys on this show as well. That's going to be kind of more of a long term thing. Again, we're kind of looking at moving to a new place. We're just finishing up the sale of the old place here in the next week, and we'll go from there. So that'll be kind of the situation on that side. Let's see. Yeah, is it the sports car split? I'm not gonna say anything about the NASCAR Man video. That's him. That's up to him to promote. When he gives me the good to go there, I'll definitely promote it there. But that's I know I just said it last night, so that'll give you an idea, at least the time frame. His video will probably be ready before my next video, as far as I know. But that's just up in the air. So it'll be good, though. I promise. It'll be good. So, okay, let's get into some trivia here to kind of wrap this up. Again, the categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild cards. So go ahead and jump into whatever category you'd like there in for today. Andrew Hayes and their Speed Weeks documentary. That's a possibility. Maybe something like that would be fun. Cool to see that in the future. Yeah, something like that. Jack Garland, who is my favorite road course ringer? I mean, well, if Jerry Nadeau doesn't count, I mean, certainly in 2002 he was, but boy, tough call. I mean, Boris Said maybe. Boris Said was a big one. I mean, I like Said and Fellows. They were both really entertaining. It's hard to really kind of mention one without mentioning the other, because they had just very different personalities and just amazing skills. Fellows was very impressive in those Chevrolets. You may say that, oh, well, he didn't have a Cup Series win. He was extremely close, even closer than Boris was. Those runner-up finishes of Watkins Glen to Tony Stewart, the great runs he had with Nemco Motorsports, the Bully Hill Vineyards car, one of the most underrated and beautiful paint schemes. I'm torn between the 1999 and the 2001 paint scheme as which one was better. 2000 rather. 2001, he had the Nortel Networks car. That one's pretty good. But 2000 scheme was really fierce looking. Looked gorgeous. That would be a tough one. Oh, we're talking about Fitz. There you go, Jonathan Green. There you go. Yep, or Fitzy. Okay, we got teams. 1, 2, 3 drivers. Okay, looks like we got a lot for teams here. Yeah, Scott Pruitt, all those other ones. Alrighty, so we'll go into teams. I see a lot for that one. All right. And let me get a little bit of a drink here. Get my second win here for the home stretch here. Ran the Bully Hill car in 2000. Okay, it was 2001 at the Glen. Okay, you ran the Nortel Networks one at Sears Point, but Did he run it in 2000 also? I got to look that up again because I think he had a couple years. He had some really nice looking paint schemes on that 87. I mean, Nemco team, Joe Nemechek's team in general has had some really nice looking cars. I got to look that up. Okay, he did? All right, right on. All righty. Okay. So teams. All right, here we go. How many cars did the Wood brothers field in 1965 super speedway events? That's an interesting way to phrase this. How many cars did the Wood brothers field in 1965 super speedway events? How many cars? We're looking for a number. How many cars did the Wood brothers field in 1965 super speedway events? That's your next question. Okay, we got guesses 2, 3, 3,589. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's been that many cars in the history of the sport. All righty. And the answer is 4. The answer is 4 that they ran in the 1965 super speedway events. And who got that? Jonathan Green. You were right on it. I think you were E. Okay, no, not quite. I think you're the only one to get it, Jonathan. Right on, man. More power to you. All right. Okay, here we go. What owner had a chain of car dealerships when he got into racing in 1984? What owner had a chain of car dealerships when he got into racing in 1984? Yeah, 21, 121. Not sure about the. Yeah, it's kind of a tricky one on that one. Alrighty. It's over 9,000. Is it indeed? What does a scouter say about this answer? It is indeed Rick Hendrick. You guys got it. Yep. Rick Hendrick is the correct answer. Gotta say, I don't think I mentioned this in the Talladega show. Very pleased with the documentary they did on Days of Thunder, the Golden Hour that was on FS1 last week, or was it the week before? I thought it was a solid job on that. I think at 30 minutes wasn't nearly enough time to cover the subject. I would have really preferred something much more in depth. I think that there was probably, judging from the people they interviewed, whether it was Hans Zimmer or Carrie Ells and all that, there was probably a good 3 hours of content in there at least that they could have boiled that down to. That there was a lot that I wish I had a better grasp of. I mean, especially Tony Scott in particular. I know that everybody that was talking about him spoke with him of him with great reverence there. I would have loved a much longer version of that video. I think that would have been really entertaining. It could have stood to be a decent effort there. But in general, though, not bad. A nice overview for it. I know when they split these up and they cram them into the episodes on NASCAR Race Hub, they have to be, I guess, a certain length. But I would have preferred something much longer. Oh, we going ooh, Nathaniel? Okay, somebody remembers last week's show. ooh. Okay. Next question. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver was sponsored by Spam in 1996? What NASCAR Winston Cup driver was sponsored by Spam in 1996? Hey, Broken Sam, man, I see you. Alrighty, what NASCAR Winston Cup driver was sponsored by Spam in 1996? Alrighty, and it looks like you guys all got it. You guys got it. The answer is indeed Lake Speed. Lake Speed. Spam car. Slap shoes. Yeah, there you go. Very close. Those Spam diecasts were pretty cool. C acceleration. I like it. Confirmation you get the point on that one too. Yeah, all right. Okay, we got some decent ones here. Okay. Who piloted a Joe Gibbs car to win his second Daytona? Excuse me. Let's try that again. Who piloted a Joe Gibbs car to win his second Daytona 500? Who piloted a Joe Gibbs car to win his second Daytona 500? Now, this one might be worded wrong. I'm thinking it means who piloted a Joe Gibbs car to win his second career race at the Daytona 500, because that would be, yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. It's not written. It's not written very well. Who piloted a Joe Gibbs car to win his second Daytona 500? Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, Denny Hamlin seems like it'd be a good answer today, but this is from the late '90s, so we're not talking about that. And there was a long time that Gibbs didn't win the Daytona 500, which seems unthinkable now. And the answer it gives is Dale Jarrett. Okay, so yeah, it's not worded right, but Dale Jarrett wasn't winning his second Daytona 500. That was his first Daytona 500. So that would be, yeah. In the 90s, there was no correct answer. Yeah, there you go. There's a Spam museum. I've never been to the Spam museum. I've been to the Jello museum. That was surprisingly hard to find, and we got in there right before it closed during our New York trip. Yeah, Spam Museum would be, it'd be interesting. The lunch counter would too. Not going to leave hungry. Okay, here we go. Next question. What driver did Bill Davis hire to replace Mark Martin in the Busch Series? What driver did Bill Davis hire to replace Mark Martin in the Busch Series? Busch Series question. Yeah, this Jello Museum. It's in upstate New York. Steamed hams territory. Did they give free Jello? No, they didn't, unfortunately, but we did come there right before closing. It's very, very small, though. Very small. But they sell it there. You can leave with plenty of it there. I actually got, since I worked at a hospital at the time, I actually have a shirt. They had different shirts for different colors of Jello. I had to get the lime Jello one, of course, because it's all about the green Jello at the hospital. Although when I worked there, they only had like tropical fruit flavored Jello. They never had the green stuff, at least not in the emergency room. I would imagine that they should have done green. Did the museum jiggle? It kind of did. What driver did Bill Davis hire to replace Mark Martin in the Busch Series? The answer is indeed Jeff Gordon. You guys got it. Jeff Gordon. Wonder Boy. Slab Bulkhead. Indeed. Yeah, Jello Museum is cool. It's very small. It's probably about as big as this room I'm in right now. But they do have displays of other like molds, like Jello molds that were like famous ones, and they had a poll as like what the favorite flavor is. I think strawberry was like towards the top. I always figured lime was the top one because I always thought that was the one that they always want the green one. They want the green Jello. That's the big thing. But yeah. Steamed caps. There you go. Yeah. No, I don't think they actually had a thing. They should have had it was very family friendly. So I don't think it had Jello shots as part of the display. That would have been interesting. Barclay Goudreau. Goodness, all these weird names. Lime and blue. Yeah, blue is good too. Well, I'd have to agree on that one. Okay. Who left Team Sabco to return to IndyCar racing for 1998? Who left Team Sabco to return to IndyCar racing for 1998? It surprised me how insubstantial or unsubstantial Jello really is when you eat it. It's like, it's like soup. It just doesn't fill you up. It's not meant to, though, of course. If you eat enough Jello to fill you up, you've probably done something wrong. But, I don't know. Are you guys more partial to like the Jello, like the actual translucent flavors, or like the pudding? Because there's two different categories there. I mean, it's kind of hard to compare. The pudding's awfully good, but Oh yeah, pudding all the way. See, there you go. Yeah, you guys are. Yeah, it's tough to say. The Jello is, because the Jello you can get like any flavor, and it can be any shape. It's kind of cool. It's like that Bruce Lee quote that NASCAR man put up earlier about being water. You pour water in a bottle, you become the bottle, and so forth. They are for different things. That's true, but they're all under the same umbrella. Who left Team Sabco to return to IndyCar racing for 1998? The answer is indeed Robbie Gordon. A lot of you got that on Robbie Gordon, indeed. There you go. Fittipaldi, good guess. I always remember Christian Fittipaldi being in the 43 car with the when Darrell Waltrip kept calling him Fittipaldi. So that was a big thing in 2003, thereabouts. RD Fox 76. That's quite the story there with the Jello. Jello soup floating on Jello tire rubber. Yeah, well, it's tricky. Okay, Nathaniel trying to tease me with the E. It's still getting a laugh out of me. It always does. Alrighty. What driver got a ride from co-owners Dick Brooks and Felix Sabates in 1994? These are good team questions. What driver got a ride from co-owners Dick Brooks and Felix Sabates in 1994? 94. Alrighty. What driver got a ride from co-owners Dick Brooks and Felix Sabates in 1994? Dallas Cowboys, Michael Waltrip, Jack Roush, Kenny Wallace, Hamilton, Dallenbach, Petty, Dallenbach, several guesses. Yeah, they're for different things. That's true. Charlie's Angels or the Powerpuff Girls. There you go. Again, yeah. Well, is that your comparison? Yeah, made for different things. Yeah, that would be a good comparison. They're definitely made for different things. Red Jello. Okay, there you go. See, there's a lot of ones. I'd look at the comments from earlier. Blurple. Trying to remember. Yeah, small like a Jello shot. Maggie Payton. There you go. There's another one. I'll have to do something with. I'm gonna have to do something with that movie at some point. What driver got a ride from co-owners Dick Brooks and Felix Sabates in 1994? And the answer is Bobby Hamilton, the 40 car. Bobby Hamilton, Dick Brooks, and Felix Sabates is after Kenny Wallace and right before Kendall Motor Oil came on board. Bobby Hamilton. You might be guessing Kenny Wallace or Dirt Devil. You're right on the button. You're very close to it, but not quite. Yeah, 94, 94 is a very weird season, as you remember from the NASCAR Man video I did on that one. Yeah, a lot of people drove that 40 car, had different ones. Sabates never really had ugly cars. Even the 96 Coors Light one that Kyle Petty had wasn't that bad when you get used to it. It was a little jarring with the orange and purple. It just didn't look that good, but it wasn't that bad either. Alrighty. Next question. What owner started the 90s with Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Bodine driving Fords? What owner started the 90s with Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Bodine driving Fords? Yes, Kyle Petty's protest car. Absolutely, that one too. Yeah, let me pull this up. There you go. For those of you not sure what Bobby Hamilton's Kendall car looked like, here's an eBay auction for a picture. That gives you a good look at it there. So if you zoom in on it there, that's an interesting paint scheme. Kind of another variant there on the mellow yellow car a little bit. Yeah, still know why Christian Fittipaldi's in the 43. Yeah, that's what it felt like in 1990. It felt like in 2003 also. What's owner started the 90s with Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Bodine driving Fords? Ted Cruz? Yeah, probably not. Junior Johnson, Wood Brothers, Bud Moore, and the answer is indeed Bud Moore. Bud Moore Engineering. Shepherd in 90 and 91, Bodine in 92 to the first part of 93 before he started his own team. Cruz Pedregon. There's a fun name. Fun names to say. We'll do a couple more here. What's the most consecutive seasons Petty Enterprises drove without a win? This is a tricky one. We're looking for a number. Now, again, this is the late 90s. So chew this question over again. What is the most consecutive seasons Petty Enterprises drove without a win? Without a win through their entire career. What is the most consecutive seasons Petty Enterprises drove without a win? We're looking for a number. How many number of years? How many years? What's the most consecutive seasons Petty Enterprises drove without a win? Anyway. Ooh, okay. Nathaniel trying to go for the bonus point here. Okay. The most consecutive seasons Petty Enterprises drove without a win. The answer is 11. RD Fox 76. Looks like you got it. Let's see. Anybody else is 7 and 8. You're really close to it. I guess we're talking 84 to 96. 84 to 95. Yeah, there we go. Yep, 11 years. There you go. Very close. Everybody was very close to it. That was a tricky one. All right. Alrighty. Here we go. What team owner gave Ernie Irvan his first NASCAR Winston Cup ride in 1987? Don't look it up. What team owner gave Ernie Irvan his first NASCAR Winston Cup ride in 1987? 87 is the year we're looking for. Yeah, he won in 96, but I guess the streak was it says 11. I mean, well, I guess it'd technically be 85 to 96 would be 11 years. What team owner gave Ernie Irvan his first NASCAR Winston Cup ride in 1987? Okay, we got guesses for McClure and Yates and Earnhardt and Osterlund and Don Levy and Clyde Torkel and Charlie DeMillo and these others. Here we go. One more time. What team owner gave Ernie Irvan his first NASCAR Winston Cup ride in 1987? And the answer is Mark Reno. Mark Reno. I was going to say DK Ulrich. I thought it for sure was him, but it says Mark Reno, who I believe was affiliated with Phoenix Racing later. Mark Reno is the correct answer. I think that stumped the group. That was pretty close. Yeah, Mark Reno, Marcreno. I don't know if you saw that well on the screen. There you go. Let's try that. There you go. There you go. Alrighty. So we'll do a couple more questions here and then we'll wrap up here for tonight. What was the last year in NASCAR's first 50 that a Pontiac won the Daytona 500? What was the last year in NASCAR's first 50 that a Pontiac won the Daytona 500? The last year in NASCAR's first 50 that a Pontiac won the Daytona 500. Okay, I guess it's for 93, 83, 95, 32, 83, 93. The last year in NASCAR's first 50 that a Pontiac won the Daytona 500. Trick question. Pontiac was never a NASCAR. Confirmation. You're looking for the 1,000 IQ move here. Okay. Let's see. And the answer is 1983. 83. Cale Yarborough in the backup car in the first 50, which was through 1998. Yep, there you go. 83, Nathaniel. I think Set Head 2, you were right on it there. NASCAR Fan 93 100. Nathaniel. Yep, right in there. Yeah, it was not intentional, but sometimes most interesting things are not intentional. Alrighty. Let's do this. Who was car owner Rod Osterlund's main driver during the 1978 season? Who was car owner Rod Osterlund's main driver during the 1978 season? Looking for a driver name. Jarrett drove a Chevy in 93. Gibbs didn't go to Pontiac until 96. I think. 96 or 97, right in that range. Maybe even 97. It was right in there. Who was car owner Rod Osterland's main driver through during the 1978 season? Was it 97? Okay, right on. Who was car owner Rod Osterland's main driver during the 1978 season? I guess it's for Earnhardt, Kaz Gralla, Darrell Waltrip, Marcus, Ralph Earnhardt, Denny Harvick, L.W. Wright. And the answer is indeed Dave Marcus, the Marcus Guessers. You got it correct after listening to the Scene Vault, I'm sure. Great interview on that. Really enjoyed the Brett Bodine interview. I need to do a better scan of that. It really is a Kenny Irwin tribute on that brick car from 2003, but the picture came through terrible. I took like 3 different shots of it. I got to just literally just put it in the scanner and see if it comes out any clearer. That'll probably be something I'll work on there and try to get that looking better. Yes, Dave Marcus is the correct answer. All right, last question for tonight. Last question for tonight. Alrighty. What car owner has the most wins at Daytona International Speedway? Now, keep in mind, late 90s. What car owner has the most wins at Daytona International Speedway? What car owner has the most wins at Daytona International Speedway as of the late 90s? All right, we got guesses for Hendrick, Wood Brothers, Petty, Hendrick, Morgan McClure, Dangerous, AJ Allmendinger, Petty Enterprises, Petty, the Mark V of Mark Martin, SpongeBob, The Woods. What car owner has the most wins at Daytona International Speedway? I'll let this sit for a little bit longer here so you guys can make sure you get your guesses in. Saturn should have gotten to NASCAR. That would have been something. Alrighty. Okay. And the answer is the Wood Brothers. The Wood Brothers. There you go. Right off screen there. There you go. Wood Brothers is the correct answer. So, several of you got that one. It actually looked like. MLG Pro Swag 69. A couple of you got it. There you go. Justin, you got it. Yeah, tricky. It seems like it almost be a Childress question or a Petty question, but no, the answer is, according to this, the Wood Brothers, at least at that point. Ultimate 23 Dragon, there you go. You got it too. There you are. Well, again, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We're going to go ahead and call the show there now. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the action this weekend at the Roval. We'll look ahead to the round of 8 next week. And we'll be back here for the Sunday show after the triple header weekend with Truck, Xfinity, and Cup. We'll talk about the action that week. We'll do some more trivia questions here. I appreciate you spending some time with me here on this wonderful Sunday evening here in the fall. If you want to check out some more of my content, I encourage you to check out my Twitter at LastCarOnBrock, my website, lastcar.info, where the article on Timmy Hill or the any potential disqualifications will be covered later tonight. Also, this channel here on YouTube, episode 2 of Rise of the Field Fillers is still in production. We'll get that set up. For more updates on that, you can also check out the Patreon at patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock and get yourself some bonus gear as well as get you some access to some bonus content that we'll have on there. So thank you again so much for everyone tuning in. And we'll find out what happens next week. Things seem kind of wide open heading to Kansas with Kyle Busch out of the championship hunt, but a lot of competitors still in it. We'll see where all that shakes out. So have a good evening, everyone, and thanks again for tuning in.